Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up. I'm Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish, and with me, Ben Schneider, Adam Lemerise, and Joshua Burch, who will join us a little later for MotoGP. I want to remind all of our viewers out there to leave comments and questions in the chat below. We'll display them on the screen and do our best to answer them live here on the air. And a special shout out to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, Dushel, and Robin, for investing in the Grid Network. We really appreciate what you guys do for us. And as we've been doing before each show, here's another update from the fallout following the Russian invasion into Ukraine. Jennifer Fryer from the Associated Press spoke with Gene Haas, the owner of Haas F1, who was on site at Las Vegas Motor Speedway this weekend to watch his NASCAR teams compete. Haas told the Associated Press the Formula One team made the decision to part ways with sponsor Uralkali and driver Nikita Mazepin because the situation was getting very overwhelming and intense to deal with, especially for Haas's other sponsors. Pietro Fittipaldi will test the Haas F1 car in Bahrain, but Haas stopped short of naming him as Mick Schumacher's teammate for the 2022 season because the team is currently looking at several candidates and plans to make a decision by the end of this week. Haas F1 is expected to be fine from a financial standpoint, so dropping your colleague, not really a big deal for them right now, and they're definitely open for business. After Haas terminated Mazepin, the Russian driver put out a statement saying his willingness to accept the FIA rules were completely ignored. Haas told Fryer that Mazepin didn't understand the severity of the situation with the position the team and the driver himself had been put in. And tune in Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time for Grid Tonight. We'll go more into detail about the situation at Haas F1. Now they're racing this weekend, Supercars in Sydney, MotoGP in Qatar, and NASCAR in Sin City, Las Vegas. Another weekend of racing in the books. And let's start off with some of the main storylines from the Pennzoil 400 in Sin City.
Thank you, Kobe. And yes, certainly a lot to be following there with the Haas F1 team. I'm certainly going to be paying attention to what you guys have to say later this week, especially with Andretti wanting to get into the sport. I wonder if there's a chance for maybe Michael to make Gene an offer he can't refuse, maybe like what Justin Marks did with Ganassi on the NASCAR side of things this year. So we'll see what happens. But speaking of NASCAR, getting into the Cup Series race this weekend for the third consecutive week, the NASCAR Cup Series produced a finish that had the fans up on their feet. With 2 laps to go, Eric Jones got up into the front stretch wall hard, lost control, and went spinning back onto the racing surface. Bubba Wallace almost clobbered him. The number 23 Toyota spun to the inside to avoid Jones and ended up hitting the tire barriers at pit exit. Prior to the 12th and final caution of the race, Joe Gibbs Racing teammates Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. were fighting hard together for the win. Lead lap cars pitted, and the 3 Hendrick Chevrolets of Kyle Larson, Alex Bowman, and William Byron all took 2 tires, while Busch and Truex took 4. It was Bowman versus Larson on the front row of the restart in overtime. Larson tried to make the top work, but Bowman was ultimately too strong on the bottom and took home the win in Las Vegas, scoring back-to-back wins for Hendrick Motorsports. Of course, Larson won last week in Fontana. On the radio after the race, Kyle Busch wasn't too happy with the final result and basically says Bowman lucks into every win. He also used some colorful language on Twitter to illustrate his point. His teammate Denny Hamlin also famously called Bowman a hack after last fall at Martinsville. So, Adam, we'll start with you on this one here. Does Alex Bowman simply not get enough respect as a driver?
Yeah, he does, and he wins when nobody expects him to win. He doesn't get a lot of respect, and Alex Bowman is a very, very talented driver at Hendrick Motorsports. Now you can say there are 2 Hendrick Chevrolets in the playoffs. The only 2 that are missing are Chase Elliott and William Byron, and I don't think that'll be a problem for both of them. So you expect to see all 400 Chevys in the playoffs. But Alex Bowman, to me, like I said, he's a very, very talented driver. I've got a lot of respect for him, and he wins when nobody expects him to win. What a great call, taking 2 tires, for the last pit stop, before we went into overtime. And that was a really great battle we saw between Alex Bowman and his teammate Kyle Larson. I gotta say, I feel sorry for the Joe Gibbs Racing teammates of Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. But all in all, Alex Bowman is a really talented driver. Lost respect for him, and I don't think he's done winning in 2022. I think he'll win a couple more races before we get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Adam. I don't think Alex Bowman is finished winning races either. And getting back to the question, I really feel like his competitors don't respect him like he should, with especially with all of the wins he's had in Hendrick Motorsports, and considering the races that Alex Bowman has won, and people still said that he's the weak link at Hendrick Motorsports. I think Hendrick Motorsports certainly has four drivers that are capable of going out there winning every week, obviously, and contending for the championship. And I think it's the fact that, like you said, Adam, Alex Bowman wins at these most random times. I can't remember too many times when Alex Bowman just flat out dominated a race and one like that. It just seems like something happens and then poof, there he is, pops up and wins the race. And I think that's where Kyle Busch's frustration was headed. You're probably just upset because he thought he was on route to win. If it wasn't for that caution with Eric Jones and then Bubba Wallace hitting the inside wall, Kyle Busch probably would be a winner in 2022. But he's going to have to wait because Alex Bowman got the job done today. Certainly an excellent drive by him, and I believe he can definitely win a few more races before the season ends.
Yeah, there's always going to be luck in a sport as chaotic as stock car racing. And, I think Alex Bowman has certainly been on the beneficiary side of that more times than not. But that being said, you still have to put yourself in position. You're not going to win a race running 20th and benefiting from something happening to the leaders or a late race caution. You have to be up there at the front to be able to be in position to capitalize on that. And that's certainly something that Bowman's been able to do multiple times now in his career. And I think certainly deserves a little bit more respect from drivers and fans alike. To be a 7-time Cup Series winner is something that the vast majority of drivers who have stepped foot into a stock car can't say they've done. So I think certainly Bowman deserves a little bit more respect for that. And on the manufacturer side, Ross Chastain got up there with Trackhouse Racing as well. So 1-2-3 for Chevrolet today in Las Vegas. Kyle Busch was the highest finishing Toyota after falling back to fourth. The Toyotas did run well today. It seems like they figured out the overheating problems from Fontana. But one Toyota driver who didn't have a good day was Denny Hamlin. A spin resulted in a broken transaxle and killed every gear on his car. Hamlin crashed out of the Daytona 500 for the first time in his career, battled overheating problems at Fontana, and now today retired early at Las Vegas. So, Kobe, we'll start with you this time. What does Denny Hamlin need to do in order to get some positive momentum on his side after this slow start to 2022?
Oh boy, it's definitely been quite a slow start to the 2022 season for Denny Hamlin. It started before the season even got underway. Remember testing at Daytona, had a blown motor there. Then he had a mechanical issue at the Busch Light Clash, crashed out of the Daytona 500. First time in his career. Really, really shocking stat there, considering all the luck you need to get it done on the super speedway tracks. Then Fontana able to battle back for a top 20 finish, considering all the overheating issues and things that went wrong there. And then mechanical issue here. Denny Hamlin's definitely not having a good time to start off this 2022 season. And as we know, with the playoff format, he could have a dreadful start to the season, win a race, which he's probably most likely going to do, and then he's in the playoffs, and then these horrible start to the season for him is not going to matter in the grand scheme of things. So I think the only thing that Denny Hamlin should do is put all this behind him and be like, I'm going to go out there and do my best to try to win each race.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Kobe. And Denny Hamlin, there are some short tracks coming up, and we know how good Denny Hamlin can be at those, especially at Martinsville Speedway in Virginia. His home track. He's really good there, and I'm surprised that Denny Hamlin has had all this bad luck so far to start the 2022 season. He's a well-talented driver. He drives for a respected team, Joe Gibbs Racing. But even though it's just 3 races in the season, it's still early. Denny Hamlin could rebound next weekend and take the victory at Phoenix. Then we go to Atlanta, which Now you can say is a super speedway and requires a restrictor plate. So I think Denny Hamlin will win this year and get into the playoffs.
And we do have some breaking news from Bob Pockras of Fox Sports. Tech is complete, no issues. Alex Bowman is the winner today at Las Vegas. That is now official. And I've got to say, maybe some nervous people this weekend because Brock Beard's been working overtime at NASCAR. Had a couple disqualification issues in trucks and Xfinity so far this weekend, but no issues today. Bowman's win is now official, and as is the rest of the field there. And so while Bowman and Larson led the way for Hendrick Motorsports, claiming the top two spots today, the Chevrolet driver finishing third was Ross Chastain. Trackhouse has continued to improve and show speed. Last week, of course, Daniel Suarez was in contention for the win late at Fontana. Unfortunately, he got taken out in a crash early today after contact with Chase Briscoe. Chastain led 83 laps today, more than any other driver in the field, and I believe actually more than he's led in his entire Cup Series career up to this point. So a career day for Ross, even though he couldn't quite get the win. So, Adam, we'll go to you first this time. With Trackhouse getting faster every week and Chastain and Suarez maturing more as Cup Series drivers, do you think we'll see one or maybe even both of them break through with a win at some point soon?
Oh, Trackhouse Racing is... Don't be surprised if Trackhouse Racing wins soon. They have two talented drivers on that team, Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez, and we give a call to Ross Chastain's sponsor this week, the ACM's which is the Country Music Award Show, which will be held at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, and you saw Dolly Parton on Ross Chastain's car as well. So I think you will see Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez win this year, and it's just a matter of time. We have Phoenix next weekend, Atlanta. We have Bristol Dirt. We have so many good tracks that they can win at. So I'm going to say both Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez win for Trackhouse Racing, Justin Marks, and Pitbull.
Yeah, that would definitely be massive for that team if both Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain could go to victory lane this year. And based on the speed they're showing, I think it's certainly possible we could see not one, but two of those drivers at Team Trackhouse, Pitbull and Justin Marks' organization, go to victory lane this year. And speaking about both of those two maturing as a driver, I think a lot of people have already said in the past that they believe Daniel Suarez was obviously rushed up to the NASCAR Cup Series too soon with the abrupt retirement of Carl Edwards, and they didn't have anybody else they could throw in that number 19 Toyota Camry. And since Suarez was just coming off an Xfinity championship, he was the next best option. And he probably could have lasted in Xfinity maybe another year or two before moving out to the Cup. Then he would have been ready. But when he first got to the Cup Series, I didn't necessarily think he was ready for that big jump. And then he's bounced around several teams, left Gibbs, went to Stewart-Haas Racing, a really tough year with the Gaunt brothers, and finally found his way to Trackhouse Racing, where I think that's certainly the right fit for him. And all those, and getting the experience in the Cup Series the last couple of years has certainly been huge for him. And Ross Chastain, I've also seen him mature as a driver as well. Ross has a reputation of racing people very hard, sometimes making very erratic decisions on the racetrack. And today was really one of the first times I've seen Ross Chastain. Well, not necessarily first. He ran really well at Darlington last year, but today was really the first time that I saw him put together a complete race in the NASCAR Cup Series with that, as they say, driving in over his head. And I think Ross is learning to calm down early in the race. Don't race somebody like it's the final lap. Calm down, because we still have a long way to go. And I truly think that Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez are only going to keep getting better from here.
Yeah, really good point, Kobe, about Daniel Suarez. I totally agree with you. I think Carl Edwards' abrupt retirement maybe forced him into the Cup Series a year or two sooner than he was expecting. And for Suarez in particular, I think it's been a case of not having that stability. I think people forget that Trackhouse was actually his fourth team in 4 years, going from Gibbs in 18 to Stewart-Haas, and then a very tough year, obviously, with the Gaunt brothers running as an open team. And then finally seems to have a new home here at Trackhouse. And Ross Chastain similarly thought he was going to be going full-time with Ganassi in 2019, and the whole DC Solar thing blew up and kind of put his career in question. Now he seems to have some stability here with obviously Ganassi last year, and that team has been purchased now by Trackhouse. And it looks like, I would say, when you take something on like that, Justin Marks and Pitbull, buying an entire established Cup Series team that has run very well the last 2 decades, I think they're certainly committed to the future of the sport, and Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez as well. So I wouldn't be surprised. I think at least one of them wins. The way it's been going so far this year, only 3 races in, they've both come close. So I absolutely think that both of them can win as well. So we'll just have to see what happens from here. Now, last week, we all gambled and said Aric Almirola would not continue his top 10 streak for a 3rd consecutive race. Almirola proved us all wrong today, finishing in 6th place. 2021, of course, wasn't the best year for Almirola. Lots of bad luck and disappointing finishes all around. And the win at New Hampshire and a playoff berth that came with it, pretty much the only thing that saved him from 100% disappointment. So, Kobe, I want to ask you first here, could Aric Almirola's final season as a full-time NASCAR driver be one of his best yet?
Well, Ben, since it's the very beginning of the season, it's too soon to say, in my opinion, but it's certainly getting off to a great start for Aric Almirola. Looking at last season, I know we've already talked about this multiple times in the show within the last couple of months, how 2021 was not a good year at all for Aric Almirola. And this year, considering how last year went, I think he certainly has to feel a lot of positive momentum going on right now. And if that number 10 team can keep doing what they've been doing these last 3 weeks to kick off the start of the season, I feel like Almirola can certainly save the best for last. And looking at his overall career and everything he's been through, I think that would be the perfect ending for Aric Almirola.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Kobe. What we've seen so far from Aric Almirola, I think that gives him a lot of momentum. You know, like you mentioned, it's his last full-time year in NASCAR. And so far, 2022 is proving to be really good for him. We go to several tracks coming up. We go to Phoenix next weekend. We go, and then we go to Atlanta, and we have a comment from Zachary. Said that Hendrick continuing by winning 7 of the last 8 races. That's impressive. I don't care which team you are. That's Hendrick Motorsports has something cooking over there in Charlotte. But I think, you know, like you mentioned, Kobe, it's early, but I think Aric Almirola is going to have a really good season in 2022, and I think he will win.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Eric's very motivated to go out on top here. He says he's retiring to spend more time with his family, and we certainly can admire that. It's been a rough tenure at Stewart-Haas the last couple of years for him, aside from the couple of wins he's gotten, but I do believe he's a talented race car driver, and I would like to see him have some success in 2022 as he steps away from the Cup Series after this year to prove that. It's been a long, hard career at times for Aric. He's dealt with some injuries and obviously kind of blew up in 2007 when he got pulled from that Xfinity race in the middle of the race in Milwaukee for Denny Hamlin, and some controversy there as Hamlin went on to win the race, and Aric was credited with the win. Almirola's had some ups and downs throughout his career. It'd be nice to see him end on a positive. And now we'll turn it over to you, Kobe. I think you have some news regarding MotoGP, and Josh is going to join us as well.
And actually, Ben, we have a question in the chat room from Zachary before we head on to the next section. Zachary said, will Hendrick win next week at Phoenix? And then won Phoenix the last 2 out of 3 races. So, Adam, you want to start first with that one?
I think Hendrick Motorsports will win next weekend in Phoenix. I won't. It's, they are strong at that track in Arizona, so I'm going to say yes.
It's a little early. We haven't seen any qualifying speeds or anything yet, but, Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott just ended the last 2 seasons with championships by winning at Phoenix. I think it's a pretty safe bet to say one of them could do it again next weekend.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Probably gonna see Hendrick Motorsports, Joe Gibbs racing up front, battling for the win, kind of like they were battling for the championship last year with Kyle Larson and Martin Truex Jr. So if you're thinking about early pickle winners, look no further than Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing. Also have to throw Team Penske in there as well. And as Ben was saying before we answered Zachary's question, have some MotoGP action to talk about. In the first MotoGP race without Valentino Rossi, saw an Italian rider take the win in a Ducati, but not in the factory Ducati colors. Enea Bastianini is a MotoGP race winner, a big win for him, and the first for Grassini Racing since 2006, a whopping 16 years. And next, have Joshua Burch joining us, who was calling the race. Everyone was saying the best is unleashed. So, Josh, my first question to you is: Bastianini ready to be a championship contender, or was his win a signal of how close the MotoGP competition is this year?
Well, Kobe, I think it's absolutely true that Bastianini is ready to be a championship leader. I mean, he was very important last year as well when he scored those 2 podiums at San Marino circuit in Misano. Of course, his hometown, effectively. And I was thinking to myself as well in today's race, my God, he's driving like a champion. Yes, he sort of looked into the position, but he did a fantastic move on Paul Espargaro. He kept the pressure up as well. He kept his cool, kept his nerve. He was sliding around the rear tyre on the last couple of laps as well. It was giving me heart palpitations calling the race as well with Megan. But I honestly think it was a great sign of things to come as well. And in terms of how close this year's championship's going to be, I think it's going to be very, very close. I talked yesterday about the engine change as well, allowing riders to free up finally their riding style, have more power down as well. I think it's helped the Grenesci lot as well. It's helped the Ducati certainly. After what was a miserable day for Ducati, let's not forget, with 3 of their 8 bikes retiring, it was nice to see that it was the unlikely form of Grenesci who got up there as well to take their first win after such a horrible off-season for them. So, yeah, it's going to be an open season. It's going to be a close season. I think Bastianini has just taken the first mantle of what could be our 4th different champion in as many years.
And before we move on to the next session, I have a comment in the chat room from Dimas saying, "Why Marc Marquez? Why?" And if you watch yesterday Grid Live pre-race, a lot of us thought Marc Marquez was going to win the race, but ultimately that did not happen. Marc Marquez ended up finishing 5th to start off the 2022 MotoGP season, and Grassini Racing, the lead Ducati in the race, the second highest finish in Ducati was Zarco in 8th place, just nipping Fabio Quartararo by 7 thousandths of a second. Jack Miller retired with electrical issues, and the worst was Pecco Bagnaia, who took out Jorge Martin, ending both of their races. This is the longest season on MotoGP. Josh, is Ducati in trouble because they didn't look that great considering this is typically one of their best racetracks?
Yeah, as we were saying just a moment ago, Ducati had a horrible race as well. First of all, Jack Miller retired with unknown circumstances. I'm hearing at the moment it could have been engine related, but they aren't really saying much as well. Then we had this strange accident with Bagnaia losing the front at turn 1 and taking out Jorge Martin as well. And really, it was just a bad day all round for Ducati. In terms of the Pramacs and the factories as well, it was their unlikely customer team with Grenesci, as I said, who took the main victories as well. But your question was, are Ducati in trouble? My answer is yes, definitely so. In terms of the factory bikes, they are definitely in trouble. I've never seen a team struggle so much at the start of the year. As I said yesterday, their 2022 engine was too powerful. They had to do a hybrid of 2021 and 2022. So they're down on power, they're down on reliability, they're down on controlling the bike. It's going to take them a while to get up, but hopefully this weekend was an off one, like what we saw with Yamaha. After being so high in preseason testing, they're so low here so far in the opening race. But there's 20 rounds to go. Next up is a brand new venue for them all, so I think we could easily see a lot of changes throughout the year.
Well, Josh, one of the biggest surprises to me this race was the defending MotoGP World Champion, Fabio Quartararo. He was not even a factor at all in the race, and the Yamaha just simply did not have the pace to compete. Do you think this is going to be a long long season for Yamaha, or can they improve the bike, or are there tracks where they don't have to worry about the lack of top speed?
Yeah, and as we were saying just a second ago, Yamaha have really had a difficult weekend. Qualifying didn't go well, as I said. Quartararo in the combined practice times was P11. He barely got through qualifying 1 as well. Binder was top of that session. Quartararo was second, got helped out by a few yellow flags as well. Then he qualified down in 11th and finished today's race in 9th place. And even me and Megan noticed in the commentary box, came across the line and he was shaking his head as well, looking down on the board as well. He knew it was a bad race. And as I said in the post show, me and Megan did as well, just after the race as well, we stayed on air and we talked about it. And even Megan said, he's got a bit too cocky. He's got a bit too, like, I've come into this season, I'm the reigning champion, I've got the best bike, I'm going to do it again. This weekend has really been like a slap in the face for Yamaha and a reality check that nothing stands still in MotoGP. You can be the best 1 minute, you can be the worst the next. It's all about keeping up that pressure and keeping up with the development. And I think they'll bounce back, but this was a wake-up call for the team, thinking that they could be the best. They've got a lot of work to do going into the next race in Indonesia. But certainly as well, don't worry about them too much. They can get on top of this quick. I expect by round 3 in Argentina, they'll be right back up there. And that's where I think we'll see Quartararo win the first race.
Thank you for that, Josh. Now on to our driver spotlight. Not too many women, black, or LGBTQIA racers competing this weekend. Haley Deegan finished a disappointing 33rd after crashing, only completing 44 laps in the Truck Series race on Friday night. Joe and Daniel will recap her race on Thursday and discuss more news from the W Series as well, including more team announcements. Jesse Iwuji also had a rough race at Las Vegas yesterday, finishing 34th after getting involved in a crash. Brandon and I may talk more about Jesse on Grid Live Encore tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. And Bubba Wallace finished in 25th position after getting a piece of the final caution with Eric Jones. Be sure to check out the African American Racers Association website. Link in the video description to that, as well as a link to Racing Pride. None of their ambassadors competed this weekend. Kobe, back over to you.
While the rain didn't arrive during the first race of the weekend at Sydney Motorsport Park, it was a different story in race 2. The rain really leveled the playing field, but the best still rose to the top. At the end, the front runners pitted for tires in the closing laps of the race as the track got much wetter. Jack LeBrock tried to gamble and stay out to take a potential shock win, but it didn't pay off, came to a stop off course, and this allowed the driver we call one of the best supercars racer in wet weather conditions, Chaz Mostert, who ended up winning race 2 in Sydney, and he's leaving Sydney as the points leader. Adam, is Mostert most likely to challenge Shane van Gisbergen for the championship all year long, and what makes him so great in the wet compared to his rivals?
Well, I think Chaz Mostert will be a championship contender this year in the Repco Supercars Championship. And, you know, it was really weird to see Shane van Gisbergen didn't really have a good second race. Even though he finished in the top 10, he qualified toward the bottom of the field, and that's unusual. People were shocked. He started 21st, was a lap down, then had to get through some safety cars to get him back on the lead lap. But the reason why Chaz Mostert is really good in the wet is because he does have experience running in the Repco Supercar Championship when it comes to wet weather. He's just, I said to look out for him yesterday on the pre-race show, and I was right. But Chaz Mostert is a threat to Shane van Gisbergen for this year's Repco Supercar Championship. And one thing he does have going for him, he does have a streak of blue in his hair, and a lot of fans really like that. So I don't think Chaz Mostert is done winning this year down under in Australia.
Yeah, and you bring up the point of Chaz Mostert dyeing his hair. it's been really different for the past few races. Yeah, it was mentioned blue this weekend. I believe when he won the Bathurst 1000 at the end of last year, he had blonde hair. I wonder what he's gonna go with next. Is it gonna be green? Is it gonna be purple? Is it gonna be pink? But it's nice to see Chaz really having a lot of fun, and that was quite a drive to win race 2 in Sydney. And you just mentioned Shane van Gisbergen. And speaking of SVG, he had a very uncharacteristic race 2. I was really surprised by everything that unfolded in that race. He qualified a shocking 21st place towards the back of the field, struggled during the first half of the race, spun off course into the grass. He even went a lap down, which is something you never say a lap down and Shane van Gisbergen in the same sentence. And it seemed like everything was really working against him, but he was able to get back onto the lead lap. He kept digging and surprisingly salvaged a sixth place finish considering all things. Overall, not a good race for SVG, but it could have been much worse. Still managed to collect good championship points in what could have left last year's champion in an early hole to climb out of. Adam, how important was SVG's recovery drive?
It was impressive, especially after the last safety car. It was like he's just waiting patiently, and all of a sudden, here he comes again. Unfortunately, he didn't win, but still qualified 21st. Unusual for him. It was his drive was incredible. And even though it's just 2 races into the Repco Supercars Championship, SVG will and still be a contender all season long. I think everyone is entitled to have a bad race, and I think SVG did have a bad race, even though he came home with a 6th place finish. Season's still young. We still got a long way to go to determine this year's champion.
Yeah, we definitely have a long way to go to determine this year's champion. And as was said, I just couldn't believe the race 2 that he was having to qualify that far down in the field and to go through everything he went through during the race when he went a lap down. I was thinking he wasn't going to get back on the lead lap, but with the track conditions changing and the safety car appears, it really allowed him an opportunity to get back onto the lead lap and the competitors in front of him and the shuffling in the order they had. He really took advantage of everything, this off course, and just kept with it. And you mentioned, Adam, everybody's entitled to have a bad race, and if that's the one bad race SVG is going to have this season, the rest of the field needs to certainly step up their game because he still managed to have a really good point stay 6th. And as we go on throughout the rest of the season, if SVG doesn't have any more bad days like this, we may be talking about this could be the drive of the season that actually saved his championship. Because if we have, let's say, Chaz Mostert and Anton De Pasquale up there fighting for the championship, and if it's a much closer championship than what we've seen in recent years, then we may end up saying that this recovery drive, when he could have finished 19th, 18th, 17th, around there, the 6th place finish, and be like if he had finished much lower than that, he would have lost the championship. So this is definitely one drive that we may have to revisit later in the year, depending on how the 2022 Repco Supercars Championship shapes up.
Oh yeah, I'll agree with you, Kobe.
Yeah, well, this season as a whole is shaking up here. We're less than 1 month away from the 6th annual grid ranking. 4 racers, I should say. We got MotoGP riders involved in this. 4 racers have won the grid ranking world championship before, and one of those MotoGP riders, Marc Marquez, is the only 2-time champion of the grid ranking. MotoGP today looked very competitive with no clear favorite set to dominate just yet. So, Kobe, I'll pose this question to you here. Do you anticipate MotoGP to have a 3rd consecutive season where we'll see multiple winners and really a wide open championship throughout the year?
Oh yes, definitely, Ben. I think this year's MotoGP season is going to be really special, and going to certainly be a lot more competitive than we've seen in recent seasons. It's really, as you were saying, it's really hard to nail down a favorite right now. I know a lot of people expected Fabio Cordaro to dominate and pick up right where he left off at the end of last year, but Fabio was nowhere to be seen today, really, and it's going to be interesting and for him and his team to work through the issues they had in the Qatar Grand Prix and see where they are in a couple of races from now. As Josh was saying, with the Yamaha's probably gonna be around race 3 in Argentina by the time Yamaha, Cordaro, and all of them figure things out. And I think they're gonna be competitive. Marquez, although he didn't win today, I think he's going to be really strong. And I still stand by what we were all saying yesterday on Grid Live pre-race. He's back 100%. I think Marquez is going to be up there, and a whole lot of other MotoGP riders as well. It's just so many to pick from. Can't really nail down a favorite right now.
And in Supercars, SVG suddenly didn't look like that dominant driver we've come to know him as in race 2, with a poor qualifying performance, as you guys were just talking about, and only a 6th-place finish. We say only a 6th-place finish. I guess that's bad for SGV standards, which means the rest of the field better watch out if that's bad. If that's a bad race for him. Still a favorite week in and week out, but Chaz Mostert currently does lead the point standing. So, Adam, I'll pose this question to you since you're our Supercars expert here. Could the Supercars Championship be a little bit more competitive in 2022?
Absolutely. There is so much talent in the Repco Supercars Championship this year. I think we'll see, you could have anywhere between 10 to 15 drivers, battling out for a win. It's not just SVG and Chaz Mostert. You got to give a call to Anton De Pasquale, Cam Waters, Brody Kostecki has a chance. William Brown has a chance. There's so much talent up and down that Repco Supercars lineup, and one driver that we can't count out is SVG's teammate, Rock Sweeney. What a weekend for this rookie. He can, I believe he was for race 1, he was in his first ever top 10 shootout, which was really cool. Driving the iconic number 88, a seat that occupied 7-time Supercars champion Jamie Whincup over the years. He had a really good race. He had a really good race too at Sydney Motorsports Park. So, you could see between 10 and 15 drivers going out for the win this year. There's so much good talent up and down that Repco Supercars Championship grid. So it's going to be a very competitive season.
And lastly, I'll pose this NASCAR question to everybody here. The Daytona 500 had 42 cars show up. Of course, only 40 were able to start the race. But in Fontana last week, we only saw 36. None of the open teams showed up. And this week at Las Vegas, only 37. We know we have new teams that are not running the full season. And in the grid ranking, the most frequent field size for NASCAR is what's used for scoring purposes. So with New York Racing being the only open team this weekend with Greg Biffle, will we continue to see short fields as this next-gen era begins?
Yeah, Ben, I think we're probably going to see some shorter fields at the beginning of this next gen era, but once they start to get all the parts that they need and all of that, I think we could potentially start seeing more of those open teams show up to the track. And I expect that the second Daytona race later this year and both Talladega races, I expect to see a 40-car field at those races, and that's a great opportunity for everyone to go out there and have a good day, whether you drive for a big team or a small team in the garage. But at this West Coast swing, not really a surprise to see those open teams skipping going out west, because it costs extra money to go out there, and it's a real unnecessary hassle to do all of that. So they're probably gonna stick to races closer here on the East Coast. And I know the Beard Motorsports probably gonna be back at Daytona and Talladega this year. Carl Lowe's operation, MBM Motorsports, probably gonna see one or two of his entries run Daytona and Talladega. Then we have the Money Racing team, Floyd Mayweather's operation, Kaz Grala. I think he said his next race is going to be Circuit of the Americas coming up soon. So we could see them as well. And then Greg Biffle and the NY Racing team, as you mentioned, Ben, they're probably going to be running races here and there. And also Team Heselberg, with the team that Jacques Villeneuve made the Daytona 500 with. They're gonna be running the road courses this year, and I believe they said maybe some short tracks too. but not with Jacques Villeneuve, but with Loris Hezemans. But we could see Jacques Villeneuve return to that number 27 car later this year. But it's really dependent on how the sponsorship falls. Yeah. But all in all, I don't expect to see much 40 car fields this year. Well, at least during the first half of the season.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Kobe. I think you know, I think we'll expect to see at least 36 to 37 cars at when it comes to the non-traditional restrictor plate tracks. Next weekend we go to Phoenix. They only do have, weird for me to say, but Atlanta Motor Speedway is a restrictor plate race now, so it is on the East Coast, so we could get some we could have some more teams, competing there. But I think the average field size this year will be around 36 to 37 cars. But I think for the restrictor plate tracks, we'll see at least a 40 car field.
Yeah, I think ever since NASCAR's Cup Series went to the charter system and 40 car field has been difficult enough for open teams to show up and compete week in and week out. I think the Gaunt brothers are maybe the only ones that have tried a full season when Daniel Suarez drove for them. So it's always been a struggle to fill the fields up with 40 cars in this era. And now you bring in a whole new next-gen car and the parts shortage with the supply chain and everything that all the teams are facing, from the big teams to the small teams. It seems to me that we're probably going to get a lot more 36, 37 car fields this year. Race weekends like this weekend where you only have one open team showing up. I'd love to be pleasantly surprised and see some more 40 car fields later in the year. We might get those, Kobe, like you were mentioning, at Daytona and Talladega and tracks like that. But for most races this year, unfortunately, I just do not see that happening. Now, Adam, I'll turn it over to you. It's time for the one shining moment.
Yes, sir. It sure is. And it is time for our Grid One Shining Moment for this motorsports weekend. We had Supercars, MotoGP, and NASCAR. So I'll start with you, Kobe. What's your Grid One Shining Moment from this motorsports weekend?
To be honest, Adam, it's been really hard trying to figure out a Grid One shining moment for this racing weekend. But I think I'm gonna give the call to Ross Chastain in that third place finish for Trackhouse Racing. I know it's been a frustrated start to the 2022 season for him. These first couple of races, but finally able to put together a full race and really show that he can go out there and dominate a race. And as I was said earlier, I think Chastain is really maturing a lot as a driver. He's learning to pick and choose his battles, not to race like it's the last lap on lap 50 of a 500-mile race, something like that. And I only expect great things for Ross Chastain to come. I think he's certainly going to win several Cup Series races throughout his career.
I know he didn't get the win today, but he had a fantastic run and something that I think nobody could have expected 24 hours earlier. If you saw what his backup car looked like before today, I've got to give a one shining moment to Kyle Busch, facing so much adversity. He and his team, after they wrecked the primary car in practice and qualifying and had to go to the backup car, start at the back of the field, then got caught up in some action today with a late race spin or early race spin, I should say. And by the end of the race, we're right up there looking like that he was going to drive home to the win. And then, of course, we had the late race caution, things kind of outside of his control, take the win away from him, which is unfortunate because I think he certainly proved that he would have been a deserving winner today, especially when you consider everything that he had to go through to get to that point. So I'm going to make Kyle Busch my one shining moment. And really the entire Joe Gibbs Racing organization and the 18 team in particular for putting that car together on such short notice and getting it to the point where you could not just go out and compete and hit minimum speed or whatever the case may be, but to go compete for the win is truly incredible.
Both of those one shining moments are really, really cool. But for me, I'm going to give a call to Brock Feeney. He takes over a ride that was occupied by 7-time Repco Supercars Championship winner Jamie Whincup, and his first weekend on that his first weekend in that car, well, he appeared in the top 10 shootout, which for those of you who don't follow supercars, they do 2 qualifying sessions. They have the regular qualifying session, and then they take the top 10 to determine the pole sitter for the race. So Brock started in the top 10 for that race, and he came home with a top 10 finish. And in the second race, he was really good as well, and proving to everybody that I think it was a really good call for him to be in that number 88 for Red Bull Ampol Racing. And even though he is a rookie, he proved himself that I deserve to be in that car after everything I've accomplished in the Dunlop Super 2 Series, which is series right below the Repco Supercar Championship. And it's gonna be interesting to see how his rookie season goes. There's a lot of tracks coming up that he knows very well, thanks to competing in the Dunlop Super 2 Series, because a lot of those races are on the same weekend as the Repco Supercar Championship. So a lot of experience, even though it's just his first race for Red Bull Ampol Racing, I think he will be a contender for the championship. And could he win this year? Well, could happen. And now I'll send it back over to Kobe as we wrap up another edition of the post-race show.
My one shining moment for this weekend as well has to go to the Ganesha MotoGP team. They lost their owner last season as well due to COVID. His wife took over the team, became the team principal. She had tears in her eyes on the last laps as Anea Bastianini crossed the line to take the team's and his first win in a long, long time. Fantastic that he could join the ranks of Ganesha. What a weekend it was for them.
And that's it for Grit Live Wrap Up. Please like and subscribe to Grit Network here on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We encourage you to take 5 minutes after our show and consider joining our Patreon, Invest in Grit Network. Keep us on the air well into the future. Do you want to buy me a coffee? Click the link in the video description below and you can buy a drink for your favorite on-air talent here at Grit Network. Once again, big thank you to Edward Hunter from Formula Zone, Amber, and Zachary for buying us one. We greatly appreciate it. Any amount will help us continue growing our motorsports media outlet. Remind you to visit public.com, also known as the stock market social media home. The link below and referral code gives you $5 to invest. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to properly invest in the stock market. And looking at our upcoming schedule, tomorrow night, Monday night, catch Ben Snyder and Brandon Cross on Grit Live Encore, recapping all the NASCAR trucks and Xfinity action from Las Vegas. Then Wednesday night, a new episode of Grit Tonight with me and Adam discussing Uralkali and Nikita Mazepin. The part in Haas F1 will also discuss Mazepin's replacement, which is expected to be confirmed this week. For Joshua Burch, Adam Lemerise, and Ben Snyder, I'm Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful week.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.